Hey y'all, it's me, your host, Coach Pilar Arthur Sneed. Thanks for joining me here for the last episode of the 2020 year. And what a year it has been. In this year, we have been through a lot of ups and a lot of downs. It's finally over. We can move on to something new. In the interest of wrapping up this podcast for this year, I thought it would be fun to bring to you the top 10 most listened to episodes of 2020. It has been a great ride for me, from recording each of the episodes, speaking with each of the guests on the show, and then finally presenting the finished work to you, my listeners. It's really been great fun. So I hope that y'all have a happy and safe new year. This is the last episode of 2020, the last hurrah. Hooray! We have made it through. I hope you enjoy this episode. I'll see you here again on January 8th, Friday, January 8th, for the first episode to be presented in 2021. For now, I hope you enjoy the top 10 episodes of 2020. Let's get started. In the number 10 spot for the most listened to episodes of 2020, we have episode number 20 of season 1 with Tasha Thompson of Black Girls Do Run UK. Tasha offers some great advice on facing challenges in getting out the door and starting to run. Have you faced yourself? Have you faced, besides that person who was at that particular race, have you faced any challenges in your daily running journeys where you feel like, oh, this person is, singling me out because I'm Black?
Not negatively so. I mean, there are, like, I run regularly with two other ladies who are also Black. Mm-hmm. And when we are running, I suppose it possibly is quite unusual to see 3 Black women running.
Sure.
We do sometimes draw a lot of kind of catcalling, run faster, which is a little bit annoying sometimes.
Yes.
I wouldn't say we've experienced any racism, but you experience kind of like the staring.
Interesting.
Drivers tooting their horns, which are all what reasons why females say, I don't want to run. Yeah. Everyone will look at me.
Yes, absolutely.
But you have to get past that care of like, well, let them look.
That's exactly.
But it's not. But that makes it sound really simple, like, oh, just brush it off your shoulders and don't worry about it. But that's a big barrier for some women. They don't want to run because people look at them.
Yes, I have.
And people do look.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I have heard this before. India, who was on the show before, she talked a lot about the fact that, women may feel, and particularly, I think if you're a runner who's of size, right? You're big. Yeah. You're bigger than what the ideal of a runner looks like. People think, oh,
what they've told you.
That's exactly right. You are right. You phrased that correctly. That people are going to be looking at you. And I agree with you. I think it sounds like there's really easy to get over. Like, you just have to kind of overcome that. And I think I'm very much like yourself in that I'm just going to show up. I mean, yeah. Maybe you know what I'm saying?
But that's a process. Yeah. You don't just arrive at that point. You just eventually you enjoy running so much you don't care what people around you are saying. But that doesn't happen overnight, I don't think. And it can be intimidating. But I find that running early in the morning, there's nobody really around that makes those comments.
Yeah.
Running later on in the day is when you find that the people are out and about, getting on with their day, and they make those stupid comments. But I think it's, to the person who's saying it's just a throwaway comment, but to the person running, it can have quite an impact on them. And it's quite intimidating and it's quite off-putting. It can make you not want to go out running again.
How would you how would you tell someone that they can overcome it? What advice would you give to them to do that?
Oh gosh, that's difficult because, well, they're never going to go away.
Yes.
They're not going away. Throughout my whole 21 years of running, they've not gone away. They're still out there. They still say stupid things like run faster. And you think, I've just run 10 miles.
That's right.
You have no idea what I've done.
That's exactly
You're telling me to run faster.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Absolutely no idea.
You run faster. How about you run with me?
Yeah. How do you overcome it? You just have to almost block it, because you can't block it out. You're always going to hear it. You just got to eventually choose not to let it bother you, because they're not going away. They will always be there.
Tied in the number 10 spot was episode number 15 of season 1 with Shawanna White. Shawanna offers some insight into who inspires her in her running. So tell me, who or what inspires you, you know?
Oh, that is a good question. Like, I'm really inspired by all runners. Like, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow one may run. Just like there's so many different stories out there from the runner coming back from an injury and getting that Boston qualifier, or from the runner that's just being able to run their first 5K. Like just everyday runners really inspire me and get me excited about running. But like, if you would say, who do I look up, like, to role models?
Yes.
Like, for example, I really love Des Linden. I love her mindset. I mean, she's just awesome. She just go out there and, you know, just try to do her best. And even when she don't do her best, she's still going to just keep showing up.
Yes.
And I also like Marielle Hall, because, like, I was so excited when I saw her run at Texas. I was like, what? Oh my goodness! Wow, this is just exciting. Like, African American runner. Like, yes. I love Kenyan runners. Like, some Kenyan runners are my best friends, but I get so excited because, like, the way you start into running is different. Like, in Kenya and Ethiopia, you know, that's part of their culture. Like, to run long distance. Like, here in America, that's not how it is when it comes to running. Like, it's sprints and jumps and throws, you know, not distance running. So, you know, like,
it's not running. Running's not even like a thing, you know, really. And I think particularly for Black people, like, it's not even really. It's not. You know, most kids are like, oh, I want to be a basketball player. Oh, I want to be a football player. You know, they see those are their idols that they see, but they don't go, oh, Ted Corbett, he's amazing. Shawanna White, she's amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you even have, like, some distance runners here, and I can't quote any ones off the top of my head, but some of them have even stated, like, basketball players and, like, Serena Williams were people that they looked up to. Like, they never said a runner because they didn't have anybody that looked like them to look up to. Because, like, I remember hearing, I think the young lady name is Clara Green. I think she runs for Hoka, and she's Black. And she was talking about how when she saw Marielle Hall running so good at the Peyton Jordan meet, that inspired her to run well too. So, I mean, it's just come back to seeing people who look like you. And I think, I mean, even though you still can count them on your hands, but we're getting there. It's going to take time.
We are. In spot number 8 Kranti Salvi, episode number 5 of season 1. Kranti talks about what motivated her to try for a Guinness World Record, the fastest woman who ran in a sari. Let's listen in. Yes. So tell me a little bit about how you decided to run for a Guinness World Record. How did you make that decision?
Oh, that was another very interesting story. So when I started running, I ran a first the Boston Marathon. So many of the running groups, they invited me for felicitations and this that. Like when you run a Boston Marathon, it's like a big achievement over here.
Oh yes.
I qualified for the Boston, and it's one of the very few runners you are there. So you stand out. So that's how the local running group had organized one event, which is our Maharashtrian, like we are living in a Maharashtra, state of Maharashtra in India. So we have our New Year beginning in our as per the lunar calendar. So the New Year celebration was there. It's called as the Gudi Padwa. So early morning, we instead of celebrating it in a usual traditional way, we had decided to wear all traditional outfits, but run for a 5K and a 10K. There were two events, and we were going to the running was going to be flagged off by me. So I was wearing the all with all the jewelry, traditional outfit, and the jewelry. That the sari was a traditional one. It is a 9-yard sari.
Yes.
And after flagging off, I ended up running, with the flag. So it was like a runner in me just ended up running it. And while running, I wasn't supposed to run, but I ran a 5K and came back. But while running, I was thinking, that jewelry was just banging on my chest and all that. The wind was coming in the way and obstructing. So that's how but I thought, it's doable. I mean, running in a sari could be doable thing, but not a marathon or something,
Yes.
And when the pictures were posted in a social media, some of the people tagged me, it's a time to make a world record. There was already a record existing of a sari. There was already one record which was done by another woman from India only, and that then I visited, and it was recently declared, that time. No, that same years when she had ran a Mumbai marathon, and she ran in a time which was, I could have done faster than that, and that was I felt, and that's how when I was registering for Berlin, and I thought, oh, why not do the same thing in Berlin?
On top of the pandemic that we have gone through in 2020, there was a lot of civil unrest due to Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the running community, in particular the trail running community, was not immune to this discourse and unrest. Ben Chan was on the show, and he talked about his experiences in wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt and how that affected him within the trail running community. And here he talks about how we as runners can engage in the world and use our voices, and why. So Ben, we've talked a lot, and I really appreciate this conversation very much. Before we depart each other's company, I usually like to ask folks if there is any advice that you have ever been given, or advice that you'd like to give any runners that are listening. What would it be?
Oh man, that's if there is any, I think it's hard to think of one thing. I think that just be yourself and use your voice, and you never know. Sometimes I think, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this because it sounds ridiculous, and because people already think that I talk too much, and
Sure.
people are tired of hearing my voice.
Sure.
And then somebody will like privately say to me, "Hey, I'm glad you said that, because I feel the same way, and I didn't really know how to say that, but I'm glad that like you did." So don't underestimate how important your voice or your presence could be for somebody else. Like people are watching. Like, and I'm not saying just for me, like everybody, like anybody, like people are watching and people are paying attention, and maybe somebody will see or hear something that you said, or maybe they'll see you and they'll be inspired. So don't underestimate that, and think about that.
In the number 7 position, we have Lyubov Lomonosova, who joined me on the show to talk about her journey from a 12-minute per mile runner to a Boston Marathon qualifier. She talks about mindset and how our mind really is the key to everything that we do in running. So what advice would you give to somebody who's just like myself, who is like, I don't know, maybe, previously I didn't think that I could, but I'm hearing you and maybe it's possible. I don't know.
Okay, if you think it's possible, I'm pretty sure it is possible. But also it's like it starts with what do you believe? Do you believe you can, or you cannot believe, or you don't believe, or you don't believe in yourself, right? So this is like very important part. But then when you have this decision that you want to try that, because why not try? If you will not try, you will never know if you can. That's right.
That's exactly right.
So then, like, what could you do, like, to make it happen? I would think hiring a good coach. It is not just, like, I am a coach myself, and I have a coach too, just because, I think that everyone should have a coach, because like when another person looking at you, at your progress, and applying like another knowledge, it might be very useful, and it holds you more accountable. And then that person can guide you, can support you, and it's so much easier to do when someone supports you, right? So that person just needs to have a smart plan for you, like listen to your feedback, right? And just go along and see what happens. And I think like so many things are possible. So oftentimes we are just setting some limitations.
We set those limitations on ourselves. Tied in the number 7 position, Kelly McLay of Fit International Travel joined me to talk about her journey as a 7-continent marathoner. That's 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. So she talks a little bit about how unconventional it is to do such a thing. This is season 1, episode number 3. Take a listen.
He said to me, "You're not trained. How are you going to do this? Like, you can't say yes." And I said, "I can't say no." So I went from running, again, this is a don't follow me unconventional, but people ask, how did you train for that? And I didn't.
You're like, I just, the opportunity arose and I made it happen.
Yeah. So I went from running a collective 300 miles that total year to running 180, I think it's 183 in that 1 week. And yeah, so Antarctica was November, and I was back in Antarctica in January. And we started this trip. I mean, the logistics alone and just getting around the world, we had 168 hours to get around the world. Once that gun went off at the start line in Antarctica, the clock ticks down. It's fully running the entire time we're moving. We had 59 hours of flight time. I ran the marathons in a total collective time just under 37 hours. And so it left about 10 hours per day to get changed, find food. Think about when you finish a marathon and you're trying to pull yourself together. make your way to somewhere. I had 10 hours a day to find some sleep, pick up my stuff, change, wipe off the sweat, get warm, or we went from, -10 to +90, running marathons within 24 hours of one another. And yeah, the hardest thing. So, if we go back to this, me as an unconventional runner, I don't rely too much on a plan or a program. Like, I got to eat at this time, and I have to go to the bathroom at this time, and I have to have this meal. And because those runners on the 777 had the hardest time because it was full of spontaneity. We were running at all different times at 3 a.m. So I may not have trained on the mileage, but I was well trained.
You were
for
well
the
trained,
spontaneity.
mentally speaking. Coming in at number 6, Wendy Larson talks about her transition to hand cyclists after several medical challenges. And she talks about how this transition provided her with a fresh perspective and a new found freedom and joy in a new aspect of a sport that she loves so much. Take a listen.
We've got to find a different outlet for you because you need to be off of your feet, because it just got to the point where it was dangerous for me.
So how did you handle that? How did you handle that news? How did that affect you?
I'm generally a very positive person. I allow myself to get upset about stuff for a day or two, and then I'm like, pack it up, put it behind us. We're going to move on and move forward. And I think there were probably a couple of weeks when I came to the realization that I was not going to get that full marathon on my feet anymore, that I was really bothered by it. But I was determined not to let it stop me because I knew there were alternatives out there. And I guess, one of those was I had been doing a lot of the Run Disney races, and I saw the wheelchair athletes out there. I'm like, well, there's no reason I can't do that instead.
Absolutely.
And then, my physical therapist and my PM&R specialist and all of those doctors were super supportive of that. And they worked with me to figure out, okay, well, let's put you in a hand cycle and see how you do. So once I got that, and I'm like, okay, I can still do this. I'm just going to have to, change things a little bit. Then I was all for it. And the very first time I got on a hand cycle, it was almost a huge relief to me because I was not in severe pain. I was not passing out. I wasn't worried that every step I took, I was going to fall. I wasn't worried that, I was going to end up in the ER during a race anymore, which, that happened a couple of times. So it was really the sense of relief and excitement because I found something that was much better suited to what I wanted to do. And it was a way I could move forward and continue to be active and be involved and, really continue enjoying what I love to do.
It's not often that you get to meet one of your favorite TV heroes and stars, but I had the opportunity to do just that. In case you didn't know, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I got the opportunity to chat with Cirroc Lufton, who played Jake Sisko, little Jake Sisko, on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He talked with me about his Ethiopian running heritage and what inspires him as he sets out on the road for his runs. It was a great conversation. I hope you'll enjoy this quick snippet of the season opener for season 2. So what, in terms of running, is there anyone or anything that inspires you?
Yes. There is a story about a runner that is commonly told in Ethiopia, where my mom is from, and I'm half Ethiopian.
Oh, okay.
And as you know, Ethiopian and runners have a long history.
Yes.
And one of the big things that we have as our national heritage is the Olympic runner by the name of Ababa Bikila.
Mm-hmm.
And Ababa Bikila ran in the Olympics in front of Mussolini, who was at that time at war with Ethiopia and one of the opposition forces. And when he ran with no shoes. So he won the marathon, won the gold medal as a barefoot runner against the occupying forces in the face of, and it's very similar to what Jesse Owens did with what he did when he was running.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pride that that people can get from knowing that, you know, in the face of such adversity, in the face of adversity, in the face of people that don't think the best about you, that you can triumph and overcome, and actually force that person to acknowledge your talent and your abilities. And I think that's one thing that serves as a pride for Ethiopians. It serves for pride for those that were inspired by Jesse Owens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that can be accomplished just by running.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Coming in at number 4, I was joined with Dr. Kimberly Rodriguez, founder of Latinas Running. She shares some really great advice on giving yourself grace. So I have one more question for you. If you had advice if there's advice that you've ever been given, or if there's advice that you would like to give, what would it be?
Own your journey where you are today. That's probably the biggest thing that I would give to somebody and that I've been given as well. I feel that sometimes, especially as runners, we're very goal-driven, which is amazing. But I feel sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves when we experience a setback, or we're not where we want to be, or we get too focused on time and pace. And I think it's just and also that, to me, and this is from a personal experience, it triggers like sometimes body image or, other things, or that you're just at the now, like if I could talk to the older Kim 5 years ago when I was going through all that, it'd be like just to be a little bit more kinder to myself where I am today, because it's great to be goal driven, but don't forget to love yourself where you are in the moment. That's the biggest advice I would give to anybody as you continue to work on a better you.
Coming in at number 3, I had the opportunity to chat with India Cook, co-host of the Run Duo podcast and also YouTuber. She's on YouTube offering great tips for runners all across the world. We talked about a common theme that has been recurrent throughout this podcast, and that is, how does one overcome fear of getting out onto the pavement? It's a common problem, particularly for women, and most especially for women of color. And she offers some really great advice for overcoming this common fear. What do you think is maybe not the number one thing, but one or two things, I guess, that folks need to overcome, particularly Black women need to overcome to get involved in and I would just say in movement, not just in running, but just in moving their bodies. What do you think is something that needs to be overcome in getting folks just out the door?
Judgment. I think that's one of the biggest things. I think there's such a level of, I don't want to be judged on how I look. I don't want to be like how I look if I sweat, or, you know, how it's going to be perceived if I can't look a particular way when I do it, if I can't go fast, if I can't last long, if I can't, if I'm breathing hard, if I look like, you know, whatever. And I think that we have to get over that piece of judgment. And I think for me, that's kind of where it was when I first started. I feared connecting with the actual run group because I was in fear of being judged. Not being able to go far, being the last one to finish. Like you kind of, in our minds, we cancel out the act of doing stuff before it even gets started. So if you already have these things set up in your mind that potentially could happen, you've already talked yourself out of it. And so I think that judgment is one of the things. I think the other thing is we are so, I kind of using the word brainwash, but we're so what's the word? I can't think of the word, but we're taught that a particular look is okay, and I don't think that we really understand what fit can be and what fit can look like. And what I mean by that is that I am, you know, for some people would consider me a plus size runner. But I can probably outrun some really small, thin individuals that probably, if you were to put me next to them, people that don't run would be like, she's gonna win. Whereas for me, I could probably outrun the person that may look fit. That's right. And I don't know if that is coming across as understanding, but like the perception of what fit is, the perception of what the right body type is, the perception of what healthy is two different things. And I feel like we have to do better with debunking that narrative and that stereotype and what that looks like as Black women, and that, oh, if I run, I'm going to lose my thighs and my butt, and I'm going to forget, you know, like I'm not going to be likable, and I'm not going to have this figure. And it's like, girl, listen, I'm still thick out here. And like, I'm working on, I have what I want to look like, and you can still keep that. But it's just like, please understand. And I don't think it was until I started running and getting more engulfed in the running community, we are all shapes, sizes, colors, black girls. Like, it literally, and you can't underestimate that. Ages. Like, there's people that are 30 years older than I am, and they are killing it out here. 30 years older than I am. There's people that if you look at them, you would assume they can't go far, but they are doing their thing. And so it's one of those things where running doesn't have really a face to it. But I think that between social media and between the news and broadcasts and all that stuff, they put a face to it. And we need to do better with debunking what that face looks like.
In the number 2 spot, Baltimore's very own Arnell Kwashi joined me on the show to talk about service through running. And also she talked about creativity in running. She shares some of the ways that she has seen runners stay active through this crazy year, this crazy pandemic time. So take a listen. Tell me, over the last couple of months, really, and, you know, during this COVID-19 time, and then also in general, what are some things that have surprised you about this journey in running?
Things that have surprised me in this journey of running, that runners, we will find a way to run regardless if it's of the weather. That's right. If there's a pandemic, exactly, we will find a way to run. And the commitment that comes with it. I think running, there's a large sense of commitment that comes with running. And it really taps into personal goals and personal accomplishments, at least for me. And it's and the creativity that comes with running. I think sometimes we tend to think about running in terms of miles and pacing. But for me, watching the creativity of running, a combination of, a lot of these races have been canceled due to the pandemic. And so people finding very creative ways to still accomplish these various goals that they have set for themselves. Still doing I didn't participate in any of these virtual, well, that's not true. I did a couple of virtual ones, but just watching the way that we adapt to still do the thing that brings us joy. And finding ways to continue to challenge ourselves over these past couple of months. I think those are the things that stick out for me.
And coming in at number 1, the number 1 spot, drum roll, please. Dun, 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 dun. LaToya Shante Snell, who joined me on the show. We talked about race, running, and pretty much everything in between. In this very short clip, LaToya offers some really great advice for approaching your everyday life and your running career.
And that when you're an athlete, you have to do the same thing. You take those training runs, you go out there and you put in whatever mileage that you need to train. And every day you got to treat it like a yoga practice. You have to walk into it with no intentions. But when you come out of it, there's a lesson to be learned in every training run that prepares you for your race day, essentially. And that's what I take with me in my everyday life.
And with that, we will close out this year of 2020. Thank you so much to each and every one of you guests who've joined me here on the last 10th in season 1 and season 2. I appreciate your words of wisdom, your knowledge, and everything that you are willing to share with myself and the listeners on the show. For now, I am your host, Coach Pilar Arthur Sneed. Happy New Year. Here is to better and more joyous times in 2021. Join me here again next week for another episode of The Last 10th.